Hello! This video is going to be about the Sauchie Poltergeist. Now, in my last video, the scariest things tag, I spoke a little bit about this, but then I've decided to make a full video on it, and this video is going to be a part of my Halloween week. I'm going to make a video every day on the run up to Halloween for a week. So I am starting on the 24th. So I decided to make this video because Sauchie is so close to where I live. Like, literally I walk 2 minutes and I'm in Sauchie, and I haven't really seen anyone post a video about this on YouTube, so I thought for this Halloween week, for my Halloween week I'm going to speak all about scary Scotland, like things that have happened in Scotland, myths, legends, ghosts in Scotland, because I don't really see that spoken about much on YouTube, and since I'm from Scotland I'm going to speak about that. The Sauchie Poltergeist effectively began back in November 1960 when an 11-year-old girl by the name of Virginia Campbell came to Scotland with her family, leaving family behind from the small village in Donegal, Ireland. Virginia's mother Annie had come to Sauchie to live with her married older brother and his wife at the house in Park Crescent. Virginia was an attractive girl with blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes. As any young child leaving behind their family and friends and moving to a strange place, Virginia was most unhappy, but at the same time accepted that her parents wanted the best for her, and this move was also a big move for the rest of the family. The first few weeks were fine and trouble-free, but soon the peace was broken by numerous scratching noises which came from various parts of the house, noises that no family member could account for. However, as the weeks progressed, the strange noises increased in intensity and proved quite unsettling. As if the noises were not bad enough, the family noticed that various household items would disappear only to return at a later date. Ornaments would move on their own accord with no one near them, but probably the most unsettling and terrifying occurrence during these early weeks was when the furniture started moving around the living room on their own volition, and various doors throughout the house would open and close with no one near them. Things were steadily getting worse, and the nerves of all family members were getting frayed by every minute. Soon word was spreading about the haunted house in Sauchie, and being a relatively small village at the time, quite a few people were getting to know about it. Back in the family home, things were getting even worse, and a large and heavy linen chest was seen to rise several inches off the floor, and its lid was seen to open and remain open for a short period of time and then slam down quite violently. It soon became apparent that when all of these events occurred, Virginia was in the house at the time. When she was out, all was quiet and peaceful, and it therefore began to dawn on the family that these events must somehow be associated with Virginia's presence. So the next part is when the events go public. By now the family were at their wits' end, and they had to seek out someone who could possibly provide them an answer to what was going on. So it was at this point that they contacted their local GP, a gentleman called Dr. H.W. Nesbitt, who lived in the nearby village of Tillicooty. Sadly, Dr. Nesbitt couldn't really alleviate the situation other than prescribe them some drugs to calm their nerves. On the strength of all paranormal happenings put together, they soon realised that their house must be haunted, and on the basis of that, they sought out the services of a local vicar by the name of Reverend T.W. Lund. Mr. Lund attended the family home but could offer little support to the family other than to offer them prayers. However, as a bizarre twist to the case, the poltergeist effects did not just contain themselves to the family home. Incredibly, they travelled with Virginia to our local school. For any poltergeist event, this is very rare. It may happen occasionally, but in the main, most, if not all, poltergeist effects will contain themselves to one location, the home of, shall we call, the victim. One day at school, Virginia's teacher looked up from her own desk and saw Virginia struggling with her desk lid. Virginia had both elbows trying to force down her desk lid, which seemed to have a mind of its own. She asked Virginia what she was doing, and Virginia said she was doing nothing. When the teacher told her to stop, Virginia took her elbows away from the desk lid was flapping up and down. The screams of Virginia's classmates resounded throughout the room as Virginia's teacher looked on open-mouthed in disbelief. This case did not just go local, it did not just go national, it went worldwide. So following this incident and an attempt to alleviate the situation, Virginia was moved to another house in the neighbouring town of Dollar. Unfortunately, this did not improve the matters. The phenomena followed her, and she returned to the house in Sauchie. By now the press were getting wind of the story, and the Campbell family were being hounded every time they set foot out of their house. It didn't take long before the story leaked out into the national press. Meanwhile, the events intensified. The Alloa Journal of the 16th of December 1960 reports 2 Tillicooty doctors used a tape recording of sound phenomena that had been heard during the psychic illness of little Virginia Campbell in the Scottish Home Service scope on Tuesday. The sounds in themselves were not terrifying, but when a child's voice started screaming, "Mummy," that happened when Virginia saw the lid of the linen basket starting to open. The doctors explained that it was then that the listeners realised that something unusual was happening. Okay, and someone has went back onto this case and reinvestigated it, and they've got the phone number of the teacher, and this is what the teacher said. "The first time I became aware of anything strange was when I had given the class an essay to do. The class was quiet and all the children had their heads down, bent over their jotters, busily writing away. In 1960 we still had the old desk that had a lid on top. Anyway, I looked over at Virginia and noticed that she was sitting with both hands pressed firmly down on top of her desk. I rose from my chair and walked over to Virginia. I was then surprised to see the desk lid rise and fall, with Virginia trying her best to keep it shut with her hands. At this point, a child in front of Virginia rose to take her jotter over to my desk. No sooner had she left her seat, her desk rose a few inches off the floor on its four legs. I then explained to the class that I would be back in a few minutes, and during this time I went to see the school headmaster. I told him that there was something funny going on in my classroom, and I explained to him what I'd just seen. Head teacher said that he had heard talk of strange things going on in the Campbell household. He then asked to see Virginia and asked me to explain to our classmates that Virginia would be going home for a few days because she was feeling unwell. I was also told to say that there might be talk from others of ghosts centred around her, but they were not to believe this, that they were just rumours. This is what he more or less told me to say. Anyway, I went back to the classroom and summoned Virginia over and told her the headmaster wanted to talk to her. As Virginia left the room, I found that I could not shut the door behind her and had to summon help from 3 of the children to help me push the door shut. I remember saying to the class, "It must be very windy today." Virginia was not distressed at this time. I then mentioned to the class telling of what the headmaster had told me to say, and I found that the class was quite responsive and very supportive. The most unnerving thing that I experienced in the classroom was when one occasion I was sitting behind my large oak table. Virginia was standing at the other side of the table with her hands clasped firmly behind her back. Suddenly, a large blackboard pointer cane, which was lying flat on my table, started to vibrate. At first it vibrated slowly and then increased as the seconds wore on. I sat transfixed looking at this. Then the table, which was quite heavy, started to rise up slowly in the air and also vibrated. I put my hand on the table and tried to push it back down, but with no success. I was quite horrified, but I did not stop there. The table continued to vibrate as it hovered a few inches off the floor. Then the table rotated through 90 degrees so that where I had moments before sat behind the long edge of the table had rotated so that its narrow edge was now directly in front of my stomach. I looked up at Virginia and saw that she was quite distressed, and I remember her saying, "Please miss, I'm not doing that, honest I'm not." I calmed her down. Just then a bowl of flower bulbs shot straight across the table. Other strange aspects, school jotters would rise up in the air and move away from the direction of where Virginia was at the time. These objects never seemed to move towards Virginia, they always moved in a direction away from her. The teacher also informed the journalist that she had noticed the strange things seemed to occur on a 28-day cycle. One story concerned a woman who asked if she could touch Virginia because she was one of God's chosen ones. She also recalls receiving a letter from a witch doctor in Africa who had advised her to pound down some bones and dance over them. This, she was told, might get rid of Virginia's ghosts. The Church of Scotland arrived at Craigbank Primary School and held a service in the classroom, not an exorcism. This, however, failed to work. Margaret concluded an interview with me on the phone by saying, "These events really did happen, Mr. Robinson. I remember them as if it was yesterday. I will never forget them." Okay, a major witness. Through further research, I uncovered another major witness to the events in the Campbells, a Mr. James Carruthers, who at the time of the Poltergeist event was closely associated with the family and witnessed many of the strange events taking place. Here is what Mr. Carruthers had to say to me on the phone. "On one occasion, I was in Virginia's bedroom with a number of other individuals, and I was standing close to the bed in which Virginia was lying. She had the bed covers pulled up to her chin, Suddenly, I observed the covers making a rippling movement from the bottom of the bed right up to her chin. I am convinced that Virginia did not produce the effect. There was no movement from below the covers, i.e. her legs. Mr. Carruthers continued, seconds later I observed the pillow next to Virginia, which had been plumped up, suddenly take on what had appeared to be a shape of someone's head. A clear indication of the pillow was seen by me and others in the room. Now during this time, strange knockings, bangings, scratchings and what sounds like sawing noises were coming from all over the room. You couldn't really pinpoint the exact source of the noise. It was coming from everywhere. Most unusual was the sound of what appeared to be like a ping pong ball constantly being bounced. Virginia was quite distressed by all this. On another occasion, when the Church of Scotland were in attendance in the home, these noises, these bangings and rappings intensified during the exorcism ceremony. They were really loud. I remember when the church members started singing, "The Lord is my shepherd." And that is it. That is all I'm going to read on the Sauchie Poltergeist. I hope that gave you a little bit more of an insight to that. It is quite creepy. So yeah, I just thought, since I haven't seen anyone speak about this on YouTube before, I thought, since I'm Scottish, since it's happened so close to where I live, I might as well do this. And I know this isn't the kind of videos I usually do on my channel, but this really interests me as well, so I think as I go on I might continue to make these spooky paranormal kinds of videos along with my makeup, because I really like this kind of thing as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in my next one.